Long ago, when I was a younger man, a few weeks into my marriage, I worked as an industrial temp worker. I'd moved to rural America in those days to be closer to my bride-to-be, and once married we stayed out in the heartland for a while. Work-wise, there wasn't a lot to do for which I was qualified, so I worked as a temporary laborer. A few days here at one job, the next at another. The pay was okay, and the work was sometimes interesting. One day stands out in memory particularly. The assignment was at an establishment named Superdog. It was a distribution warehouse for a large chain of pet stores in the region. The task of the day was to stack large 40-pound bags of high-end dog food on wooden pallets for distribution. I was paired with an older gentleman, another temp worker like me. We sweated and toiled, building towers of dog chow. To pass the time, this man and I began to talk. Chuck was his name, if memory serves. His face was weathered, eyes wise with perspective. He wore a black nylon motorcycle jacket, also weathered, the shoulders and backs of which were sun-bleached white like the man's hair. As we grunted and groaned over our efforts, he casually explained that he was retired, but worked the odd temp jobs to pick up extra cash for travel. Where was he headed on his trip, I asked. Chuck explained that a buddy and he rode motorcycles and were soon headed down to Florida for the winter. He spent a lot of time on the bike, he continued, pointing to the sun-faded nylon jacket. We continued, sweating despite the early winter chill of the unheated warehouse. I shared that I was a few weeks married. After a quiet pause, he said, "Congratulations. I've been married for 50 years. His eyes growing distant and blank. Wow, I said. Any advice to a newlywed for a long, happy marriage? He was quiet for a long beat, carefully considering the question, the stack of dog food growing taller by degrees. Yes, he paused. Knowing when to shut up, was all Chuck offered. After this statement, he offered no other marriage advice. Knowing when to shut up was the golden rule for marriage, according to this 50-year veteran of the institution. That cryptic guidance from Chuck, the retired long-distance motorcycle enthusiast, has sat with me like those sacks of heavy dog chow on the shipping pallet. The weight of this load seeming only to accrue the heft of relevance, like the accumulating gray hairs on my head or the furrows of permanently pressed concern in my own brow. Chuck makes a whole lot more sense to me, now that I'm worn and weathered by many seasons on the road of life and marriage, wrung out by the long miles and many deep chuck holes and too much loose gravel. Full foreclosure, through the years, Chuck's advice has often occurred to me after the fact, often too late after I've talked myself into a slippery, muddy trench on the chaotic battlefield of marital discourse, or when I'm left laying alone at the bottom of a deep smoking crater of something I realize later would have been better left unsaid. Knowing when to shut up. Its application is like the timing on a motorcycle engine. Too advanced or too retarded in the combustion cycle results in poor, sputtering performance, backfires, stalls, and other failures. The proper timing applied to top dead center results in a smoother running and much more graceful trip. Like the homespun mechanic fiddling with the timing in the driveway, we men are helplessly drawn to try to fix things. Our words, like tools, are used with greater or lesser skill, depending on the experience and aptitude when employed in the effort to solve problems. However, all too often, like a flathead screwdriver in the adjustment screws of a carburetor, our many words and their well-intended efforts can cause more harm than good. As with most things in life, oftentimes less really is more. Like Zen Buddhist maxims, The most profound insights and advice are often the most deceptively simple ones, those that are easy to say but hard to apply. Chuck's Zen guidance for marital harmony follows this pattern. I've concluded that what Chuck is saying is actually shorthand for a classic Buddhist proverb. Before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Applied at the right time, like all great Zen philosophy, yields harvests of abundant harmony. Like the best of men, I may learn slowly, but I do eventually learn, however painfully. To my single-day co-worker, Chuck, the long-distance motorcyclist, I thank you for the crisp advice. An old dog taught a young dog an important trick that I've spent the years since seeking to perfect. It was important advice, offered to me under the roof of the aptly named Superdog. Thanks, Chuck. Safe travels on that highway of life and marital harmony.